From a return that left us speechless, to a block that silenced 100,000, to a call no one saw coming, the BCS era was defined by chaos, gave us plays that flipped seasons, and moments that broke the sport entirely. These are the BCS upsets that changed everything. We start off with December 5th, 1998, one of the most memorable days in BCS history because it gave us our first taste of mayhem.
Edgerrin James with the pitch. Edgerrin James, touchdown Miami with 50 seconds left to play.
As the day was starting off, everything seemed clear. UCLA was the second-ranked team, averaging 40 points per game and over 450 yards as they were riding a 20-game win streak. Cade McNown was one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and his star freshman running back was as equally dangerous. The only thing left in their path was a Miami team coming off one of the worst losses in school history. Everyone expected the Bruins to bury Miami on their way to the national championship, and after 3 quarters, that's exactly what it looked like. But then things suddenly shifted. Miami's defense started making plays, breathing new life into the Hurricanes offense, who quickly turned a blowout into a ball game. McNown gave it everything he had to avoid an upset, but he was powerless to a favorable Hurricanes call, one that set up Edgerrin James' go-ahead touchdown and allowed the Canes to give the BCS its first real stunner.
McNown, throw into the end zone, jump ball, incomplete, Miami wins!
But for as shocking as that upset was, it wasn't even the most stunning of the day, because just hours later, it happened again.
Touchback, 10, 5, end zone, out of bounds, touchdown, touchdown!
But this time, it happened to a team that looked even more dangerous than UCLA. Kansas State's offense was the #1 offense in the country, averaging 48 points per game. Michael Bishop was sensational, the top quarterback in the country who was as dangerous as any other player in the sport. Meanwhile, their defense was also a top 10 unit, having won them their last couple of games. So when they found out that UCLA had been taken out live, they seemed destined to complete their Cinderella story. And they got 15 minutes away. But in the fourth quarter, everything changed. The Aggies hung in there long enough for good fortune to turn their way, which they capitalized on to force overtime before giving us one of the biggest shocks of the BCS era.
Touchback, 10, 5, end zone, out of bounds, touchdown!
But this was only the beginning of the chaos, because just 1 year later, a former powerhouse thought they'd returned until the unthinkable happened.
Cochran, he'll throw it deep for Johnson. It's caught! It's caught at the 12! It's deflected! First down, Penn State!
1999 is remembered as the year of the Seminoles, and the year Mike Vick took the sport by storm. But lost in all that was a team that seemed destined for the title all year long, a former blue blood that had not just one, but both of the top picks for next year's draft. LeVar Arrington was one of college football's most terrifying players, while Courtney Brown was just as much of a menace. The two helped Penn State roll through their schedule, starting off with a 41-point beatdown over 4th-ranked Arizona, along with a massive win over a now top 10 Miami team. So going into their matchup against an average Minnesota team, it was supposed to be more of the same. Their offense would do what was needed to be done, while their defensive stars smothered the Golden Gophers. But as the fourth quarter rolled around, the Nittany Lions found themselves in a dogfight. Suddenly, Minnesota had the ball down 2 with a chance to shock the world. The Stars gave it everything they could, but they couldn't stop a 4th down miracle catch blessed from the heavens above, setting up a game winner that once again erased national championship aspirations.
He got it! And the Gophers have beaten the #2 team in the country!
But Penn State wouldn't be the only one heartbroken over a game winner, because 2 years later, it happened to a team that looked unbeatable. Going into 2001, the Florida Gators entered as the top-ranked team, and in the month of September, they proved they were more than just hype. Their offense was dropping 50 points a game. Rex Grossman was lights out, as he was surrounded by future pros on the perimeter, one of them being All-American Jabbar Gaffney. And after their beatdown over Saban's LSU Tigers, it looked like nothing could stand in their Heisman quarterback's way.
Your chances and puts you higher up on that Heisman list.
I don't know anything about that. I'm just trying to win, and we got Auburn next week, and we're going to go from there.
But that very next week, something quickly fell off. The unstoppable Gator train suddenly looked stuck. The Tiger defense had the Heisman favorite looking like a freshman, making him uncomfortable all night as they forced him into one pick the next. Yet for as bad as he played, his strike to Gaffney brought life back to the Gators. And after the defense got the ball back late in the fourth, it looked like Florida would find a way to escape. But just then, Rex did the unthinkable, throwing up a first down prayer in Auburn territory, breathing life right back into the Tiger upset bid, and helping set up a game winner that took out the top team in the country. But this Florida team did get another shot to go to the title game, unlike this next team, whose mistakes truly ended up costing them everything.
Missed it. No good!
Going into 2003, Pete Carroll had the Trojans rolling. He had just coached the Heisman winner, won the Orange Bowl, and finished as a top 5 team. Yet in 2003, his squad was looking even better. The offense jumped up to a top 5 unit in the country. Mike Williams was back as one of the sport's best perimeter weapons. Matt Leinart seamlessly stepped into Palmer's shoes. Plus, they got a pair of freshman backs who quickly looked like stars. By week 3, both Reggie and Lendell were hitting off big-time runs. But it wasn't just their offense. Led by All-American Sean Cody, their defense was a top 20 unit, one that shut out 6th-ranked Auburn and quickly had USC looking like a top team in the country. So when they traveled to Berkeley, another blowout was expected. The Golden Bears were 2-3, led by a junior college transfer, but that man happened to be Aaron Rodgers, and he immediately let the Trojans know he was a future star. In the first half, he stunned USC with both his legs and his arm to get Cal a 21-7 lead. However, the Trojan defense clawed back, bailing out the offense, who was completely off that night. But Leinart and co did just enough to force overtime and looked like they'd find a way to escape until every fan base's worst nightmare came true. USC's chip shot sailed wide right, setting up one of the most memorable game winners we've seen in the sport. The loss ended up being devastating for the Trojans. After that game, they went on to score 40 or more in every game but one, eventually climbing back up to the #1 ranking in the AP poll. So if not for that loss, USC is likely going to the Sugar Bowl for a chance at the Natty. But as devastating as that kick was, nothing beats what the Sooners experienced just 3 years later. By 2006, Oklahoma was firmly sitting at the top of college football. Only 5 years prior, they hosted the trophy, and in the past 3 years, they'd been in the title game twice. They had a down year in 2005, but were ready to get right back into the title conversation. Adrian Peterson was back as the sport's most terrifying force in nature, and their defense was just as intimidating. Rufus Alexander was their star linebacker leader, while Reggie Smith was an early Thorpe Award hopeful, shutting down the back end. Thanks to that combination, many saw the Sooners as one of the country's most dangerous teams. Now, they would go on to have a couple heartbreaking losses, and an unfortunate Adrian Peterson injury ended up derailing their title hopes. But they still finished as the Big 12 champs. They were a top 10 team and had won 8 straight. So when they got matched up against a team from the WAC in the Fiesta Bowl, plus received news that they'd have Adrian Peterson back for the bowl game, a Sooner loss looked outright impossible. But that Broncos squad had been dangerous for quite some time. The 06 squad returned more seniors than any other program, players who were 45-6 going into that game. They had the #2 offense in the country, averaging 40 a game, and they let the Sooners feel that power immediately.
Wide open in the end zone. Touchdown, Dryzen James.
On the back of stellar play from Jared Zabransky, along with game-changing plays from the Bronco defense, Boise State shot out to a 28-10 lead, but the Sooners stormed back, scoring 25 unanswered points and seemingly sealing the deal with a last-minute pick 6. But that only set up the most incredible sequence in the sport's history. First, we got the incredible 4th down hook and ladder that tied the game up in miraculous fashion. Then, after an immediate Peterson touchdown, Chris Peterson knew he had to empty his bag of tricks, so he followed that hook and ladder up with a gutsy halfback pass call before saving his best for last.
They hand it off to Johnson. Boise State has won the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl.
The outcome was unthinkable. It was the greatest stunner in college football history, yet somehow that status lasted only 8 months.
Appalachian State, one of the greatest upsets in sports history.
Now, 2007 could have a whole video to itself, and actually I made one, link below, if you want to watch how that incredible season unfolded. There's West Virginia's heartbreaker, LSU's incredible triple overtime games that didn't just happen once, but twice, and a 40-point spread upset by Jim Harbaugh's Stanford Cardinals over second-ranked USC. But for all the upsets, the one that seemed like a magnitude 10 earthquake was the one that started us off. Going into into the year, Michigan was a legit national title contender. They fell only one game short the prior year and had a stacked offensive seniors coming back. First round talent Jake Long protected them up front, while Mario Manningham was a threat on the outside. Plus, their defense had NFL players across all levels. So when they opened up against an FCS opponent, it felt like you didn't even have to tune in. Yes, App State was back-to-back national champs in the lower leagues, but this was Michigan, a blue blood at home favored by 33 points. That didn't matter to Edwards though, who started dealing, shredding the Wolverine defense apart as he stunningly took a 28-17 lead into half. Not to be outdone, Mike Hart literally put the team on his back, ripping back the lead late in the fourth. But then the magic happened. Edwards once again took his Mountaineers down the field to retake the lead before a miraculous Henny to Manningham bomb saved the day. Michigan was a 37-yard attempt away from avoiding catastrophe, but then the unthinkable happened.
Is blocked! Appalachian State, one of the greatest upsets in sports history.
This was now hailed the greatest upset of all time. But for as shocking as that upset was, this next one gave us an ending just as chaotic and one that changed the title race.
Crabtree pulls free and touchdown, Red Raiders.
2008 isn't viewed as the year of chaos 2007 was, but it gave us some seriously underrated upsets. How could we forget Ole Miss stopping the Gators short, leading to Tebow's legendary "I promise" speech? Or the Beavers once again derailing Pete Carroll's top-ranked Trojans. There was Iowa sending Joe Pa packing on a last-second heartbreaker, and Utah busting the BCS wide open with a Sugar Bowl statement. But the real stunner of 2008 was the game that ended up dictating the title race. Texas entered November looking like the best team in the country. They were averaging 45 points per game and had just taken out 3 top 10 teams in succession. Colt McCoy was the Heisman frontrunner, and he was complemented by a defense loaded with talent. Brian Orakpo was the future Nagurski winner. Sergio Kindle was a fierce linebacker, and a young Earl Thomas was already making plays on the back end. So a visit to Texas Tech didn't seem like an impossible task until Mike Leach unleashed his air raid offense. The Red Raiders flew out to a 22-6 halftime lead as Graham Harrell and Crabtree tore through the Longhorn defense. But Colt McCoy was a Heisman favorite for a reason, storming Texas back in the second half with a pair of big-time throws. And after McGee punched it in with just over a minute, it looked like Texas found a way to escape. But Graham marched the Red Raiders right down the field, lucked out with what should have been a game-clinching interception before throwing a pass that forever lives in college football history.
Deep strike, got the big man, Crabtree pulls free and touchdown.
It may not have been a crazy upset ranking-wise, but the ending was one of the most shocking in the sport's history, and ultimately ended up being the reason Oklahoma jumped over Texas for a title shot. But unlike that stunner, this next one absolutely no one saw coming, and it very well may have been what ultimately killed a dynasty.
He got it. Huskies up by 3.
Going into 2009, USC was a great team who was always one game short. The Beavers got them last year, Stanford the year before that, and UCLA in 2006 in an absolute heartbreaker. But in 2009, it was time to get back to the top of the sport. They entered the year as a top 3 team, once again loaded with talent. Matt Barkley came right in as the #1 recruit in the country, while their defense had NFL bodies ready to give him the time he'd need to develop. And they do so immediately with a massive win at Columbus. The train was expected to keep rolling next week in Seattle. Washington had become a joke, going winless the previous year, but this year they had a new secret weapon for USC specifically, a man who had been with USC since 2001. He may have been the only person who thought the Huskies had a chance, and that's all they needed, because by the fourth quarter, he had the Trojans on their heels. He had completely shut down the Trojan offense, while his own offense did just enough to get points, eventually putting themselves in position to stun the nation on a walk-off winner. It was Sark's big first announcement to the coaching world, and the start of the end of a dynasty, one that would officially crumble by the end of the season. But what came the following year was an upset on a scale similar to App State just 3 years ago.
Madison has upset 13th ranked Virginia Tech in
By 2010, Frank Beamer had the Hokies as one of the most consistent programs in the country. In terms of wins, they were a top 10 program throughout the 2000s. And this year, they had a plethora of offensive future NFL talent, highlighted by their leader, Tyrod Taylor. Even though they dropped their opener to a top 3 Boise State team, these Hokies would eventually go on to win the ACC championship. So when they matched up against JMU as 31-point favorites, not a soul thought a loss was in store. But by halftime, things felt shaky. The Hokie offense struggled, while JMU showed they had the ability to strike at any time, which they did to take the lead in stunning fashion. But even more shocking was how they shut the Hokie offense down when they needed to, before bleeding out the clock to land one of the biggest upsets in the sport's history.
Madison has upset 13th ranked Virginia Tech in Blacksburg.
But the double overtime thriller we got 1 year later ended up blowing up the title race.
I'm not sure that this field can fit all 52,000, but they're going to try.
In 2011, Mike Gundy's Oklahoma State Cowboys were a problem. Their offense looked unstoppable, averaging nearly 50 points per game, giving one beatdown out after the next. Brandon Weeden was slinging it all over the field, throwing for over 4,700 yards with 37 touchdowns. Justin Blackmon was his All-American wideout, who was averaging nearly 10 catches and 100 yards per game. The two were one of the most dangerous duos in the country, having sliced apart top-ranked A&M, dropping nearly 40 on Texas, then rolling Kansas State with a 50-burger. With just 2 games left, they headed to Iowa State as 27-point favorites. But just one day prior, tragedy struck the Cowboy community. They went into the game with heavy hearts and initially looked like a team playing with a purpose. The Weeden to Blackmon connection kept rolling as the Cowboys shot out to a 24-7 lead. But out of nowhere, Iowa State started clawing back as the Cowboy offense fell apart. Suddenly, the Cyclones tied things up and forced overtime as the Cowboy game winner missed by possibly a centimeter. Overtime started a new game where both teams hit each other with one back-to-back score after the next. But then Oklahoma State's dreams got tipped right into the Cyclones' lap, setting up a finish for the ages. Oklahoma State's next 2 games made this loss that much more painful as they buried Oklahoma in Bedlam before capping off their historic season with an Orange Bowl win. Meanwhile, the benefactor of their loss was Saban's Crimson Tide, who jumped the Cowboys en route to his 2nd title in 3 years. But for as good as Alabama was, they weren't immune to some BCS chaos.
Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious. Yep. How about that?
Going into 2012, Alabama was officially the new king of the sport. They'd won 2 of the last 3 titles and had just returned to the top in dominating fashion. Nothing looked like they could stand in the way of this growing freight train. A.J. McCarron was back as the league's most efficient passer, protected by returning NFL talent at seemingly every position. Even the talent they lost got reloaded with players just as dangerous. Players like C.J. Mosley, who dominated in the opener against top-ranked Michigan, Eddie Lacy, who turned into an actual freight train, and the freshman TJ Yeldon, who punctuated the Tide's comeback win over LSU. And after that LSU win, it looked like it'd be smooth sailing to the SEC championship. They did have a ranked A&M team coming to town, but there was no way a team 1 year removed from the Big 12 would upset the Tide at home. Plus, they were led by a talented but undersized redshirt freshman, so a Bama win seemed like a sure thing. However, this was the day that freshman quarterback turned into Johnny Football. Manziel transformed into something special, ripping that elite Tide defense apart while he ran around them as if he was playing at a different speed and making plays that seemed downright impossible. Bama gave it their all to put together a comeback, but nothing could stop Johnny Football that night and his defense from stunning Alabama in Tuscaloosa for one of the program's biggest wins ever.
McCarron will throw it. It's intercepted.
The Bama faithful stood in disbelief. Johnny Manziel became a legend instantaneously, going on to become the first freshman ever to win the Heisman. But for as incredible as the upset was, it didn't cost Bama the title, unlike the following year, where we got possibly the craziest ending in sports history. By 2013, the Crimson Tide were now a certified dynasty. They'd won 3 of the last 4 titles, had NFL talent across every unit, and were reloading every single year with the top recruiting class. Saban had perfected the formula, and his 2013 version was supposed to be the scariest one yet. He had his veteran winning quarterback back, Sunday level talent across the offense, and a defense that you had no way of getting through. Honestly, this unit was putting up numbers that were hard to fathom. In 8 games, they allowed more than 10 points only once. They smothered the Hokies on opening night, shut out a ranked Ole Miss team, and when the offense needed to step up, it did, dropping 45 in a thrilling revenge win over Manziel before putting up another 38 in a statement win against LSU. So by the time the end of November rolled around, the tide once again felt inevitable. Auburn may have been the 4th ranked team, but they had gotten rolled by LSU earlier in the year, luckily escaped Manziel and his Aggies, and had just come off a legit miracle against Georgia. So it was no surprise when Bama started rolling early, piling up a comfortable 21-7 lead, looking like another trip to the title was well en route, until the Tigers started to claw back, taking it right to the Tide as they squared things up going into the 4th. And from there, it was a heavyweight fight. When Bama seemed to hit a haymaker, Auburn punched right back. It became clear it'd be decided by who had the ball last, and Bama looked like they'd be the lucky ones on that night. But the Tide's game-winning kick ended up becoming one of the greatest endings to an upset in sports history.
No, return by Chris Davis. Davis gets a block. Davis has another block. No flags.
Yet for as heartbreaking as all these upsets were, the next set of teams were just a few moments away from eternal glory until it was ripped out of their hands.
He's going